I look at that as just like, bring it on. Like, let's find a way to incorporate horses and improve this person's life so that they can be understood and accepted. And my end goal is always about making it so that they're functioning better everywhere. We don't just want to teach them to ride a horse.
Hello, I'm Eric Anderson. The voice you just heard belongs to Erin McCormick, and she is the star of episode 6 of YXE Underground. YXE Underground is an original podcast focusing on the people in Saskatoon who are making an impact in their communities but are flying under the radar. Erin certainly is making a difference here in Saskatoon. She owns and operates Equilibrium Therapeutic Riding north of the city, where she helps children and adults with physical and cognitive challenges through horseback riding. That's one of her horses introducing himself to me. His name is Smoke, and on the day I drove out to meet Erin, she was teaching a class to the general public in her riding arena. That's where I met 12-year-old Parker, who was kind enough to tell me more about Smoke.
Horses can tell, like, they're very empathetic animals. They can tell how you're feeling. So if you're feeling nervous, they'll feel nervous too. So they're really gentle.
Smoke's coming to say, hello, Smoke. Hi. Hi, buddy. When you first met Smoke, how did he react to you?
He kind of licked my hand, thought I had food. But he was very good with me when I first met him.
What's it like riding him?
It's cool because he's a big horse and you kind of just feel like really tall on him.
Now, if you're a regular listener of the show, you might be noticing I'm sounding a bit different. That's because I'm not in the CBC Saskatoon studios recording my deep, sultry voice. I'm actually out at Cranberry Flats, south of Saskatoon. I'm here because the last encounter I had with a horse before meeting Erin was here with my dog, Fred. We were walking back from the river, and we were walking back towards the parking lot, and we saw these two kind of dark, big lumps in the distance. And at first I thought, those are really big dogs. And then I thought, well, those dogs have people on the back of them. Wait a minute. Those aren't dogs. Those are horses. And sure enough, two beautiful horses, and they were riding towards the river. And so Fred was barking at them, and then he realized, oh, these are big dogs. These are horses. So we had a lovely chat with the owners, and that was my last encounter with a horse up until meeting up with Erin at her stables. And I just think horses are incredible animals, and I have such a new appreciation for them after meeting Erin. So about a month into starting this podcast, Erin reached out to me to say that she would love to be a guest. Erin was a CBC Future 40 winner in 2015, but I couldn't find an in-depth story about her or the work that she does. So I thought it would be kind of cool to learn more about the therapy she teaches with her horses.
Step 2, reins in left hand, yep. And now what? You jump out.
No, just let go.
Nicely done. Okay, so we're going to bring the reins over the head, Parker. That's it.
So I drove out to her acreage, which is about a half hour north of Saskatoon, and after knocking on the front door of her house, realized she was probably in the riding arena. Sure enough, she was teaching a class. Erin wrapped things up, bounced off her horse, and jumped right into the interview. Now, I take a lot of pride in usually being the most enthusiastic person in a room. I can't hold a candle to Erin.
Well, my name is Erin McCormick, and welcome to Equilibrium Therapeutic Riding. We're in the indoor riding arena at our acreage, and we're north of Saskatoon between Osler and Hague. And this is, I think, the most wonderful place in the world. And I think that about 110 other people that come here every week feel the same way, at least I hope anyway. They keep coming back year after year into our riding facility where we teach therapeutic horseback riding.
Can you describe for our listeners what I walked into? I saw the last 15 minutes of, I guess, a session. What was happening?
Okay, so I had a group of 3 riders, and they're all beginners. We do have a general public riding program, which is what you were witnessing there. Yeah. So in addition to our therapeutic riders with disabilities, we also teach the general public as well. And that sort of came as a demand because all the siblings of our special needs riders wanted to take up learning to ride as well. So then we've kind of met sort of everybody's needs, and families come out here all together. So
That's really neat that you've formed like a little community out here, haven't you?
totally, yeah. Definitely. The special needs community is as many individuals that have disabilities in the province. There are many, but I feel like I've gotten to know so many over the years. And yeah, definitely we want all people to be welcome here. We want it to be regardless of your disability, regardless of your need. And the program is so individualized that's kind of our selling feature, is that it's an individualized program. So regardless of what kind of a life you're experiencing outside of the riding lesson, our goals are to make gains in other areas of your life, but we're using the horse to enrich your life.
I'll ask about some of the specific programs and the therapeutic riding that you do in a bit, but can you explain how all of this came to be? You're smiling.
I feel a story coming on. So as a kid myself, in about probably grade 7 or 8, I started volunteering at a nonprofit organization that was dedicated to offering therapeutic riding in the Saskatoon area. Yeah. And so as a volunteer there, I loved my time there. It was, I would spend every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, learning to ride in an integrated program. So it was people with disabilities and people without disabilities learning to ride together, just as we have here now. And that nonprofit was really what kind of gave me the bug. And the nonprofit ceased to exist. So that's sort of what brought me to this point of wanting to start my own center, which we did in 2001.
Did you have a horse background, or what made you want to do that? Did you always love horses?
Yeah, so anybody who really, really loves horses to the point that I do can pretty much agree that it's some sort of in your DNA kind of way. So my paternal grandpa was a horseman, and he had draft horses that he used for farming. And so my dad and my aunt and my uncle all grew up around horses, but really my aunt was the one that kind of continued to love horses and own them for the rest of her life. She still owns horses. And so she was the one that introduced me to it at her place in Manitoba. Every summer I would get to go there and ride, and it was just like, once I did it once, that was all I wanted, was riding lessons for myself. And
what was it about being on the horse that just got you so hooked?
Well, it started, I think, with a love of animals. First of all, I get attached to them just like they're my children, and now they're like my babies too. And just the feeling of independence. I'm a really independent person, so I think for me, just having a way to outlet my independence and just the power, it's just the special connection with the animal, the building of the relationship, the physical closeness. That's, I think, what really drew me in.
When you were volunteering in grade 7 and 8 at that nonprofit, do you remember an experience, or maybe one person in particular that stood out to you, where you could see that it was making a difference in that person's life?
Absolutely. I actually still have that student here today. Yeah. And she was a young, at the time, youth. She's now an adult, close to my age, actually. But she was a youth as well that was learning to be around the horses. And it took approximately 1 year to coax that individual on a weekly basis onto the horse. So we tried every week for a year. And her group home was so behind her in getting her to the point where you could just see that she wanted to do it, but there were so many little mini factors that were holding her back, and one of them was fear. And then the other was just her ability to process. She didn't know like how to organize her body to mount the horse, or we needed to break it down into little micro steps. And so being a part of her path was really very cool and instrumental in my intrigue into all of this.
That's so interesting. And you still work with her today?
Yeah. I've known her for a very, very long time now. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. That is so cool. So when you started this in 2001, why did you want to do this?
Well, the nonprofit organization that I had volunteered with had closed down, and so there was definitely an unmet need in our area. Across Canada, therapeutic riding basically was having one center in every city, sometimes more than one center in each city. And so Saskatoon didn't have anything like that anymore. And when the nonprofit closed, there were a lot of individuals that were just left with no options as far as pursuing riding. And so it all happened very quickly for me in some ways and slow in others. It was like in the back of my mind that I wanted to do this. After high school, I pursued human services. So I went and got a diploma in rehabilitation, and I was employed working with individuals with special needs. And then just one day I came across this horse, Flash was his name, and he was just, I knew would be a fantastic therapy horse. And
how did you know?
Well, disposition, he was a fabulous disposition on him. Anybody could ride him. You could really feel like you could just absolutely trust him with your life. He had been someone's show horse, and he'd been very exposed to lots of different environments. He was extremely quiet, very docile, and he was extremely tolerant. So I just knew he would be fantastic. So with the handful of people that I knew from the nonprofit that wanted to continue into riding, and this horse Flash, I just started up shop kind of after work, 1 or 2 students per night, until it got to a point where Flash couldn't be the only horse anymore. There needed to be more horses. And so then I purchased multiple horses. I think at that point I was operating at someone else's stables, and I was just leasing the facility, and it just got to a point where I was only allowed to be in there so many hours per day, and I was filling them. So there was no other choice but to move towards having our own acreage with our own riding facility.
Did you know what you were getting yourself into a little bit? Because when I pulled into the yard, like, this is a big place, and I didn't really know what to expect. But the barn is big, and you have a beautiful yard and everything. But this is a big place. Did you know what you were getting yourself into a bit?
It was much easier when I didn't have to, when I was boarding at the stable, the horses got fed 2 or 3 times a day, and, there wasn't that care and management piece that I have now with all of the responsibility being on my plate. And of course, I was at a much smaller scale then. I had 30 riders in a week, not 110. So when you're managing all those people and all the people that go with those people, and volunteers, because when you have that many people, you require a lot of volunteers just to support these riders on the horses. Yeah, it's a lot. Definitely, I did not know what I was getting into to answer that question. No. I remember after we built the riding arena, I remember when they gave us the riding arena budget, they included cleaning up the mess as part of the cost. And I was like, okay, well, we need to cut costs here. We need to make, this is a, $160,000 building. We need to, shave off the $3,000 of the cleanup. And so I had the builders just dump it all in a pile. And I remember kind of, putting off towards the end of the summer, like cleaning up the mess and hauling it all to the dump myself and thinking to myself, like, this sucks. Like,
why didn't I just pay the $3,000?
Right, exactly. Yeah, so I guess it was the idea of the $3,000 amortized over a decade that was killing me, but.
Well, everything looks amazing now. So how does it work? So how does a person first first end up here and then, get onto a horse? How does that process work? Because I'm guessing that it maybe depends on what challenges they have, whether they be physical or cognitive. Like, how does it work?
Right. Okay. Well, this is getting deep. Are you sure you want to ask this question?
I am, because I'm very interested in this.
Okay. So we basically don't do any advertising at all anymore. It's all, we bring in our students through word of mouth. And again, that sense of community that you were guessing that we've established here, is that so true. And it really depends on what walk of life the individual is coming from. So we have a variety of different individuals that make referrals. So we work closely with speech and language pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists. We work closely with the Department of Social Services, some school divisions. We're working with those because they're seeing unmet needs somewhere within that person's life where they feel like riding can be a benefit to them. So that's where things get a little bit dicey when I go into explaining how people benefit. So people with physical disabilities, one of the craziest and most awesome things about riding a horse is that you, number one, your pelvis is moved in the same way that your pelvis moves when you're walking. So, yeah, there is no other device that can move your pelvis and mobilize your pelvis in the same way that your pelvis moves when you're riding a horse. And the horse just does that naturally. So you're getting an anterior tilt of your pelvis, and then a side to side, and then, of course, a back and forth piece that mobilizes your pelvis. So for someone who's in a wheelchair or not able to walk or not yet walking, but we're trying to push walking, it stimulates walking reflexes and it stimulates symmetrical movement of the pelvis. So if you're dealing with someone who has tightness or a disability where they're affected more on one side of their body, then the horse can actually train them to improve their walking gait. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy what a horseback riding can do for you physically? I just learned so much from Erin, and you heard her mention speech therapy, which is something very close to my heart, and we'll learn more about that connection in a minute. But right now, I want to introduce you to one of Erin's horses. You are about to meet Ladybug, and she is the newest therapy horse in Erin's family. We met Ladybug outside of her riding arena.
Yeah, so this one's Ladybug. Yeah, and actually I was saying Thumper is our newest, but actually Ladybug is our newest therapy horse. And she belongs to my good friend, Paula, who also happens to be our farrier. A farrier is a person who trims the horse's hooves and builds the horseshoes and shoes the horses. So she's given us a Ladybug to give for a try. We've only had her for about a month now. So she's a well-trained horse that just needs to be tweaked for our environment a little bit. So that's where we're spending a little bit of time every day.
How do you do that?
So it takes a lot of groundwork initially. So groundwork is the way that you work with the animal on the ground first, teaching them verbal cues like walk and trot, things like that. And then just desensitizing them to the environment. So we use a lot of props when we're teaching, like balls and toys and things like that we have to kind of get them used to. That wouldn't be something that even a show horse would have come across in their lifetime. So exposing them to more things, and then exposing them to unbalanced riders, right, that don't necessarily sit properly, and their adaptive equipment that they sometimes come with, like canes, wheelchairs, things like that. And then the other piece to it is actually making them strong. So a strong horse will be a tolerant horse. So they have to, a lot of people call us and they're like, oh, I have this like 3-legged lame horse that we would like to give to you. You know, they think that this horse, because it's hurt or injured, you know, would be quiet enough for our riders, and that's actually the furthest thing from the truth. We need them to be in good physical condition so that they can carry those unequal loads, and makes them more tolerant of the adaptations that we sometimes have to make, or the impairments that the riders have. So riding her and keeping her strong is a really important part of her training and readiness for being a therapy horse.
Ladybug was lovely, and you can see some lovely photos taken by Janelle Wallace on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts. Okay, back to the interview. Erin had just explained how riding a horse can greatly improve the mobility of your pelvis, which I did not know. But she also touched on the benefits when it comes to speech pathology. I was intrigued. You mentioned, though, speech language therapy. Well, how does that work? Because as in one of the earlier episodes, I spoke with Kara Brox.
Yeah.
Do you know Kara?
I know her well, yep.
Really? Well, this is a small world. And myself, having gone through speech language therapy, I did not ride a horse.
Okay.
So how does that help?
Okay, well, first of all, one of the other pieces about riding a horse is that it improves your posture. So your alignment is improved because it wakes up your balance responses. So as the horse is moving your pelvis and your body's moving around, it stimulates those balance responses and it heightens people's posture. So you can improve postural alignment, which will help improve like projection of your voice, improves the alignment so that you can project with your diaphragm more clearly. Yeah. And also for people on the autism spectrum or those who are not yet learning to speak or they're not making that cause and effect connection, it improves the motivation. So they like the movement of the horse, and so they might learn to ask for go. Or for someone who's using like augmentative communication or they're using a device to communicate, that's a way for them to practice using their device or practice tapping the horse to make them go or kicking their legs to make them go. We kind of take the individual's lead on that. We've taught many kids basic academics like colors. They can use like pro loco to go when they're on the horse, so we play games with them. So they can select that they want the red ring, for example, or that they want to carry the horse toy. We've taught them letters, numbers. We've taught kids to read on the horse because when they have that movement, they're a really captive audience. And so that's the really cool thing is that because they're being stimulated and they're in motion all the time, plus they're motivated, plus there are so many other ways, oh man. For example, when you're riding your horse, you need to be able to identify gray areas, which is part of communication. Like for example, you can walk on your horse, but then you could get your horse to do a fast walk. Well, then that you're going to have to feel and decide, is this a fast walk? And then the horse might respond. They might say, I'm not doing a fast walk today. And then you need to apply a response to that, like, yes, you are. We're going, and whether you're doing that with your voice or whether you're doing that with your body, it's all connected, right? You're having to feel and respond. And it's like you're having a dialogue with the animal.
Wow. I'm still getting over the fact that you were teaching kids to read on the horse.
Yeah.
That is...
For sure.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Do people know about this? Like, this is all new.
This is the reaction that we get from everybody, especially if you know anything about human services or you've worked with kids with disabilities. If you have any background in that at all, definitely people are like, okay, so where's this been my whole life, right? And that is definitely a thing. I mean, therapeutic riding in Europe is huge. It's just like you would access a physio or an OT or a speech therapist in Europe. Riding is one of the things that you would access as well. So in Canada, it's not a government subsidized service. It's a private service, unfortunately. And it's so much like that with all services in human services, is that oftentimes, you can get small segments of therapies in different places, but they're not funded for more than 10 weeks or something like that, right? So parents are choosing to come to therapeutic riding, I think largely because it's such an all-encompassing therapy. We're working on physical things. We're working on developmental things. We're working on speech. They're getting the movement that helps them be calm and grounded like they're trying to get when they go to occupational therapy. It ties in with all their other therapies that they're already doing in so many different ways. Plus, it's fun.
I'm curious about the parents because when they first come here with their kids, what's their reaction when they see their kids up on the horse and maybe after a couple lessons? What are they like?
Well, they can see that their child is responding, right? The movement is just so very stimulating that regardless of how they come to us, like a nonverbal child with autism, you get a little 4-year-old child, they're sometimes at that age when they have autism, they're not even making eye contact. So we can utilize the movement to engage the rider. And so I think parents are seeing that their child is engaged, and it opens the door for them to be able to learn. How can you be teachable if you're not looking at your teacher? How can you learn to copy someone's action if you're not attending enough or you're so overstimulated by your environment that you aren't able to focus? So the movement is such a key component that I think that parents catch on to that pretty early on.
So then your role as a teacher, because when I came and watched you just a few minutes ago, everyone, that was a general public class, so everyone's responsive to you. But when you have a 4-year-old with autism who's nonverbal, how do you communicate with them? And then how do you feel safe with the child up on the horse? Because if I'm a parent, like my heart's probably racing.
Right. So we have to provide enough support to that individual to keep them in the game. And that means keep them A, safe on the horse, and B, stimulated, right? And in balance. So despite whatever the child's disability is, whether they aren't able to, if it's a child that's not yet sitting, or if it's a child that has an unpredictable type of behavior or self-stimulating type of behavior, we have to provide what we call sidewalkers to that individual. So one person would be leading the horse, one volunteer usually would be leading the horse, and then the instructor or multiple volunteers would be providing physical support to that rider so that they can stay centered and balanced on the horse. So we can make positional corrections as they're going. We can give as much or as little support as they need in order to stay balanced. With a person being a sidewalker, you can phase that out, right? A lot of people come here and they're like, my child's in a wheelchair. How do we strap them to the horse? Or do they have a chair that helps them to sit? And it's like, no, that's the whole point of the exercise, is to teach them to sit on their own and to give them all that movement so that they can start to right themselves and stimulate that trunk control that is so hard to target in so many people.
But that must be so scary. And that just reminds me when I first started working at Sherbrooke and we practiced the Eden alternative philosophy. So we very much in terms of individual elders, you decide, what you want to do with your life. And sometimes that they're maybe not making the safest of choices, but that's their choice. And when I first started, that was hard for me because, my mom was an RN for years and she worked in a traditional nursing home and you took care of everything. Is that hard for you, like especially maybe when you first started or when you're starting with someone new, to like that wheelchair example? So interesting. How do you not just want to hold them up? Yeah, hover.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's it. I mean, it takes time, right? So every person is a little bit different. Even if a person is in a wheelchair and we have this nice wheelchair ramp here, see, we can bring the horses up right beside. And
okay, yeah.
We can transition them from the chair more readily onto the horse without us having to use a whole bunch of physical strength, right? But even then, depending on if a person has cerebral palsy, for example, and they have increased muscle tone and tightness that causes them to be able to be restricted in the way that they're moving themselves or helping to transfer themselves onto the horse, it's pretty much a crapshoot, really. Every time you're having to adjust and modify every mount or every dismount or every position on the horse to suit that individual person. So when I say it's individualized, that's what I mean. Like, we have to recruit different supports for every different person that comes through the door. They're going to need something different.
And you have 110 different individuals. How do you logistically keep track of? Do you take notes? Is it all in your brain?
Yeah. Well, we do take notes because that's part of my job. But mostly the note taking is actually for reflection for myself, because when you actually sit down for a moment and go, okay, this is what we did, or this is what we need to do, it helps you to be able to plan towards whatever your end goal is. So when a student comes to us, there is always an end goal. There is always a goal that we're wanting to achieve, and it's different for every person. once they're sitting on the horse, basically learning to ride regardless of whether you have a disability or not, it's actually the same path for every single person. It just has different approaches to get there. So all people, when sitting astride a horse, need to learn how to sit. That's number one. If you can't sit if you're not literally physically in the right position, if your body is not aligned, it's difficult for you to, regardless of what your disability is, to do much. You have to learn to sit. So a lot of our exercises at the beginning are for teaching a person how to balance and how to sit. And regardless of what their needs are, if it's a person with autism and they have low tone in the trunk or poor body awareness, we're going to notice an improvement when they start. We're going to go, look, they're sitting now. They're all in a line. Everything's lined up. And then from there, more functional things can happen. Same for a person with a physical disability. If we put them on the horse and they're like, wow, it looks like they're sitting on a chair. It doesn't really look like they're straddling a horse. Then we can look at, oh, well, what is it that's holding this individual back from being able to position properly on the horse? And usually with a person with a physical disability is often impaired range of motion or spastic muscle tone that's preventing them from being able to sit properly. And we do the same thing with our general public students. You have to learn to sit because if you can't sit or rather straddle properly on a horse, it's going to impede the way that you balance. And when you have impaired balance when you're on the horse, you're going to be saying things to the horse that are unintentional. So then it makes it difficult for you to become independent up there because your communication is unclear with the horse. So you see what I mean? It's all about, first in the beginning, regardless of who you are, it's really all about being able to sit. And where you go with that, improved posture on a horse is going to improve your position when you're standing on the ground. It's going to improve your level of alertness to attend to listening to what your school teacher says. It's going to improve the way that people can understand you when you're speaking because your position is better. Yeah, those are all different examples. If you're just a regular Joe and you want to learn to ride a horse, sitting properly is going to improve your ability to be able to communicate effectively with your horse so that you're not giving unintentional cues to the animal that you're not intending to give. So regardless of who you are, the beginning part is really the same for everyone.
You mentioned a little bit before when you have time for self-reflection, and that's where you're able to take some notes and begin to almost kind of formulate a plan. When you have times with a kid, and maybe it was a challenging session that day, or maybe he or she wasn't responding the way that you were hoping, how do you remain positive and upbeat when you have those challenging days?
Well, I love a challenge, first of all. So when some parents come to me and they're like, my child has some behavior problems, or they've been removed from the regular stream school system because they can't comply with school rules or standards, I look at that as just like, bring it on. Like, let's find a way to incorporate horses and improve this person's life so that they can be understood and accepted. And my end goal is always about making it so that they're functioning better everywhere. We don't just want to teach them to ride a horse. That's just one part of their whole program. And so how to stay positive? Yeah, I mean, it's not like those days are easy, but trying to find a solution is kind of fun for me.
Who's your support system when you have those challenging times? Who do you lean on?
Well, family mostly, and the horses, right?
How do the horses help you?
Well, I keep busy riding a horse of my own. Like they're all my horses, but some of them are for our students, and one of them in particular, usually I have kicking around. That's just my own special horse, and so that's an outlet for me because it's a physical. Just like all my students benefit, it's a physical outlet. I'm getting out in the outdoors. I'm exercising. It gets me out of my head because when you're riding a horse, you can't be thinking about life or problems. You are really much in the here and the now. So it's just like, it's front and center. You can really leave your cares behind, literally, when you're riding a horse. And then, of course, I've had to have a lot of family support, even to just get to where we are now. my husband obviously has come along for this ride and taken the gamble, like, okay, let's build this massive building in our yard.
Does he love horses as much as you do?
No. There's hardly anybody in this world that loves horses as much as I do.
Well, so then, like, it's good that he's supportive, but did he think, like, Erin, what do you want to do? Was that kind of the initial?
I think that he sees the good. He really sees the good. And just like you coming in and you're like, whoa, I had no idea all this could be targeted. Like, I had no idea you could help so many different people. And wow, the horse moves you like this. I mean, it's not rocket science to see how much people are getting out of being here. And so I think that that's the main thing with anybody who supports this, is that everyone wants to be behind it because they can see the benefits. Everyone wants to be doing their part and sharing in the gains that people are making. And so I think that really speaks for itself. And he has supported me. He hasn't been easy. There's been lots of times, like starting our family and stuff like that. It's hard because I didn't get to stay home with our kids like other people do. Entrepreneurs, like women entrepreneurs, have it a little bit rough where, family isn't the total center like it used to be. So definitely there's been some adaptations that have had to be made for sure. To make it happen. Yeah, I feel like some days they definitely think that I'm out here more than I should be, I'm guessing, but it's what makes my heart pump. So I wouldn't be me if I didn't have that.
Last question for you, and I'm excited to hear your answer for this, because you've loved these animals for a long, long time, and I'm wondering what you love most about horses.
Oh, what do I love most about horses? I think I love the most as just how they communicate. So I feel like being a horse person has helped me to do my job in such a way that if I weren't dealing with horses, obviously I wouldn't be able to do my job, but it has taught me to be good at what I do because they don't communicate the same way that people do. They don't think like we do. First of all, they're prey animals. So they're hypersensitive, they're reactive, they see and hear things that we don't see and hear, and putting myself in their shoes and trying to think like a horse has made me good at what I do. It has helped me be able to decipher what it is that's going on with that nonverbal child. It has helped me to watch the cues and the body language and find information in other places other than what's obvious. And so it's always sort of sometimes feels like a big never-ending puzzle by the time you're done dealing with the nonverbal people and the nonverbal animals. Sort of feels like...
And then you have to communicate with your husband.
Right. This is like just a big mystery, but I can read people the way other people can't. Like I can see on someone's face their expression or the way that they're holding themselves. I can appreciate so much more from the way that they're moving or their tone of voice. And it helps me in life because I feel like I'm reading people just with way more accelerated ability, and it helps me to be able to make decisions about the ways that I help them. And that's because of working with horses, because I've constantly had to read the horse and decide what to do and how to react and how to respond and figure out what they're thinking.
Isn't it amazing what animals can do for us?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, the sky's the limit. With horses, I think it's particularly cool because there's a physical piece, there's that closeness, there's those communication pieces, you get the exercise, the stimulation. I mean, it's different than a dog even. It's not the same. They're different animals. They respond differently than dogs. Dogs are not herd animals. They're not flight animals. They are predators, not prey animals. So the way that they interact with us is just completely different. And so, yeah, I'm as much as anything else, I'm like a translator where I'm trying to teach people what it is that horses are saying and doing so that they can better understand.
I think what you do is amazing. Thank you so much for inviting us out here. And this is amazing. So congratulations on everything. And thanks for agreeing to be a part of this podcast. It was awesome speaking with you. So thank you.
You're most welcome. I love speaking, so works out good.
Thanks, Erin.
You're welcome.
Passion, intelligence, kindness, and a great storyteller. What more do you need in a podcast guest? My thanks to Erin McCormick for inviting Janelle and I out to her acreage to learn more about what she does and to meet her lovely horses. Once you're done listening to this episode, please go to our social media pages to see Janelle's pictures. They're stunning. This has been episode 6 of YXE Underground. Thank you for listening. My name is Eric Anderson. I host and produce the show. If you know someone doing something great here in Saskatoon who is flying under the radar, please let me know. You can send me an email, ericandersonyxe@gmail.com. You can also find the podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and now on CBC Saskatchewan and CBC Saskatoon's websites. And a very special thank you to a new member of the YXE Underground team, which right now consists of Janelle and myself and my cousin Andrew, but this would be Corrine Larson. Corrine Larson is one of my best friends and one of the people I most admire in this world. She's a very powerful person at CBC Saskatchewan and is now a consulting producer for this podcast. That's because we're partners, and it's really exciting to partner up with CBC to get this podcast to more of your mobile devices, your computers, your ears. And I have to say, it was Corrine's advice to do my voicing on location, which I love the idea, but next time I need to bring mitts because it's a little bit cold outside here at Cranberry Flats. But Corrine, thank you so much for all your advice, and it's wonderful to have you part of the team. A big thank you to Janelle Wallace for taking some incredible photos of Erin and her horses. Big thanks to my cousin Andrew for the theme music. It sounds fantastic as always. And a big thank you to my wife Jennifer and my dog Fred for simply being the best. Next episode, Chef Scotty Dix will be the guest, and he's bringing people together in Saskatoon through a shared love of food. He's a really interesting guy, and I think you're really going to love the interview. And before I go, I would just like to acknowledge that this interview and my voice, and where we did it in terms of Erin's interview, was recorded on Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Metis. My name is Eric Anderson. This has been episode 6 of YXE Underground. You can find more episodes at yxeunderground.com or on iTunes, Google Play, CBC Saskatoon or Saskatchewan right now, or your favorite podcast app. My mouth's getting cold because I've been out here too long. YXE Underground is a production of the Salthammer Production Company. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk soon, Saskatoon.